Charles, it's the late night edition of Sunday with Charles. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Despite an epic travel adventure, I can reveal now that I was in London, which was actually very nice. And then I was up in Norway. And now I'm out in Southeast Asia, having suffered getting to the airport, too early for my flight, which I generally do, to find out an hour before the flight that it was canceled. And then a huge dust up with the travel carrier, where this gigantic airline claimed the only option was for me to come back 24 hours later, which I
Ooh.
did, and then get out here, which is a
Oh.
15-hour trip in the air. But
Oh.
I have to say, I'm not going to say where I am in Southeast Asia, but it is very nice this time of year.
I'll tell you, Charles, every time I talk to you, I become delighted that I've sworn off flying.
Well, it's, the difference is, and I see this in Europe, there's all this high level bullshit out of, Janet Yellen, inflation is transitory, and Pete Buttigieg, I'm an idiot, but give me $10 trillion and I might spend some of it eventually, that which I don't steal. The simple fact is that governments in the United States and Europe and Japan and South Korea are too bloated. They're taking way too much money on schemes that make no freaking sense, that inevitably involve paying off foundations and shadowy organizations, consulting firms, and the like, to claim that they're alleviating some problem that they themselves have created. If you look around the world, it's like looking at Lizzo and trying to explain that she's not fat. I mean, government is freaking fat. It makes Lizzo look skinny. Government needs to be put on a diet. Joe Biden needs to stop spending our money. Congress needs to stop spending our money. And certainly these idiots in the Eurozone, one fiasco after the next, all in for COVID, all in for Ukraine, all in for climate change, all in for that Nazi Klaus Schwab. People, average people, simple people, know how to spend their own money wisely. Yes, some of them will blow it on drugs and alcohol. Yes, some of them will be hyper consumers and borrow too much money to do it. But the average family that's trying to raise children or care for grandparents or put aside money for retirement is much more sensible than that stupid fuckhead Buttigieg and John Podesta, who are blowing $300 billion that we know about on climate change. And we discovered in the last week or so that of the $42.5 billion allocated to put high-speed broadband internet in rural communities, not one penny has been spent since 2021 to affect that change. Or with regard to these charging stations for electric vehicles, which, most Americans, 80% of all Americans live in cities. So they don't really understand what it's like, myself included, until I moved out first part-time and then full-time into a wealthy but remote rural community. When you live in a rural area, weather is not your friend. And you can have a big ass plan with 25 volumes from McKinsey that talks about this and that and the other thing. But when you wake up in the morning on top of a hill in your country home, as I half a mile from the road, and it's freaking 30 degrees below Fahrenheit, and the wind is blowing at 40 miles an hour, you need a reliable source of energy. You can't rely on a windmill. You can't rely on some, green scheme. You need good old fossil fuels. And you need reliable roads. And you need to be humble when it comes to thinking about climate. These people are buffoons. Every one of them in the Biden administration. B stands for buffoon. And the picture that the art department came up is too flattering, frankly, of Joe Biden. I mean, this is a man who is repulsive. He is. I have a friend like this who's actually become a billionaire, who was always wrong when it comes to crucial calls. And it's so valuable to have a friend like that, because you ask him what to do and you do the opposite. And he just got stinking lucky becoming a billionaire. He was given, I'm not going to get into it, but he was given a business for complicated reasons that is, and he's got a great team. who helped him out. And so he's a billionaire. But Joe Biden is a fool. He is a dangerous fool. Everything this man has touched has turned not to shit. Shit would be, an upside for him. It's worse than that, you know. And honestly, as he sits there trying to prepare for the debate, I could tell you the only speed this man has left, and it's probably speed, Adderall or something like it, is Angry Man. And Angry Man, if it's Gilbert Gottfried, may he rest in peace, that's funny, right? But he's no Gilbert Gottfried. This man is an angry fool who is in this position because the people who operate the puppets in Washington, D.C., were tired and scared of Donald Trump, and they installed this fool and a collection of idiots into the top echelons of government in the United States with allies around the world, from Japan through NATO, who seem hell-bent on destroying the prospects for ordinary men and women and children and seniors in the United States and elsewhere. Every single policy initiative these people have come up with is a disaster. The scheme that got him Biden elected, the COVID shutdown scheme that allowed the mail-in ballots to work for Biden, the scheme of pretending that the internet was going to usher in an era where we had millions of independent voices and different opinions clamoring for attention, has instead become a scheme to enforce orthodoxy, Marxist, communist, Nazi orthodoxy on our children, on the people who don't want to think anymore, who just sit there glued to television, to cable TV, listening to that moron Scarborough and others like him. We got to wake the fuck up. And I'm going to bet that Biden is being brought into the room with his debate prep people, and they're like, we can't sell leprosy to the American people. We can't sell this shit anymore. What the hell are we going to do? They are. I would not want to be Joe Biden's debate prep person.
Well, so Charles, somebody was guessing that Joe Biden might drop out before the debate. That makes sense. I just don't see. It's one thing for them to prop him up and go deliver a speech. That's quite a bit different than interacting and coherently answering things, isn't it?
I think so. And again, my big thing, as I keep telling you on the phone and then reminding our viewers on air, is contrast. So all Trump has to do at this point, the mainstream media has painted him as worse than Shrek, an unfunny Shrek, right? All he has to do is show up and be the Trump who's off script and funny. And that's Newt Gingrich's advice, by the way, who's actually on some points, he's very shrewd on politics. All he has to do is show up and not be Oscar the Grouch and let Biden go off on one of his unhinged tears where he claims that he was first in his class in law school and he's this and he's that, and he just lies to the man and then starts speaking gibberish. All he has to do is let Biden do one of those things and just respond, Mr. President, I don't speak gibberish, nor does the voting electorate, so I'm not sure exactly what you just said. Let me tell you how I will, after I fire you, make America great again in less than a year. That's all he has to do. He doesn't have to get mad he just has to let Biden vomit, hurl, so it's Biden's world, and then come back funny. And I'm telling you, he will trounce him. And it's going to be like Seattle slew at the races. I mean, it's not going to be close if they keep this dead horse in the race with that idiot, Kamala Harris. I don't know if you saw the Trump commercial where they just used her own words talking about community banks and these different. That person is like,
she's such a dunce.
The daughter. Well, she's like the daughter. You know how in 6th and 7th grade, at least when I went to school centuries ago, 6th and 7th grade is where the track system at private schools sort of separates the honors kids from everybody else. Kamala Harris is like the child of a rich family who, sadly for her, is just stupid. And so, when it's she can identify the difference between blue and yellow. So she'll get great grades in 2nd grade. But when it comes time to, putting people on the honors track, Kamala Harris she's going to be there she should go move with, Elle Woods in that Illegally Blonde movie was hilarious and smart. She's a dumb Elle Woods, right? She's not even a fashion expert. And it has nothing to do with her color. She's just fucking stupid.
Well, another thing that people have speculated about here, Charles, is that they might fire Kamala Harris, replace her with Hillary, and then Joe Biden could, slip on a banana peel or something, and then you get President Hillary. What do you think of that?
Well, there's that phrase, nature abhors a vacuum. And that's what we have right now. We have a power vacuum in the Democrat Party. And there are people in that party. Doug Schoen and Mark Penn were, I think, 4 years ahead of me at Horace Mann. And that's a big difference when you're in 7th grade and they're, in 11th grade. You're tiny and they're sophisticated. And they both got into Harvard. I forget if they both went to Harvard Law School, but they're really smart, shrewd people. And they have kind of migrated. They're definitely, neither of them is progressive. And people like them and people like my thesis advisor and my senior paper advisor at Yale, Stan Greenberg, and James Carville, they understand math and English. Biden understands neither. He's just like, can you pay more money to my sons, my wife, and my dog? Let my dog eat somebody. He's lost it. But the people who look at the polls, there's a great story on Zero Hedge. There was somebody at Fox, and we know, I forget if he's still working there, but there's a plant at Fox in charge of the top level of communications who interacts with the press globally, who's a Clintonite who worked for Hillary Clinton. So there are traitors inside Fox, which I think explains why Trump's railing on him. And they put that idiotic poll out last week that said that, Biden is now 2 points ahead of Trump nationally. Bullshit. Total rubbish.
Yeah, nobody believes
Democrat, that. The theoretical Democrat platform. First of all, people need to understand, I tell non-Americans this, the average American is not a progressive. The pointy head people who are progressives, they populate the Ivy League faculty lounges, the Rhodes Scholar Alumni Society, the media, the producers across media land and actually in social media as well, and the people who try to influence public opinion. These are people who drive Teslas and live in Greenwich Village or Beverly Hills. Go to Martha. They're getting ready to go to Martha's Vineyard in August. They do not have a freaking clue. They're trust fund kids. They're wealthy people who don't have to save for retirement, who are not, looking at this gigantic mess originally created by George H.W. Bush and then fanned by Bill Clinton and then fanned further by that idiot Obama and his team of idiots. Trump did his level best to try to turn things around. He was making excellent progress in 3 years. And then he got fooled by the scarf lady and that garden gnome, Fauci, into locking the world down when they should not have done that, particularly children. And so, we need to revisit, and I hope we will revisit the 2020 election in this debate and afterwards. But, people around the world look at this and they see the Ukraine war as a mess hurtling us towards World War III. They are waking up now. Lord help me. I don't understand why, that Castro's son, Justin Trudeau, and even these people in Europe are now saying we got to raise tariffs on the Chinese. They're finally getting that Russia is not the real enemy economically. It's China.
Well, staying on Russia for just a second, Charles, there was a big development just a little while ago. These missiles, Russia came out and said the United States is responsible for this Ukrainian attack on Crimea that included killing kids who were hanging out on the beach.
Right. That's a good thing to bring up. The first thing to understand, and I shame on the Bush family for selling this, which they did do in Gulf War I, and then in Iraq War and Afghanistan War. There is no such thing, forgive this language. Erica Jong had this book, I forget the name of the book now, where she referred to something called a zipless fuck, where it's possible to make love without unzipping your pants. that's the same idea as, this painless war. What the reason the founders decided that the people closest to the representatives closest to the people would have the responsibility for declaring war.
Whoops. Charles, did your internet freeze? Charles? Charles? Can you hear us? Charles? Charles? We may have lost Charles there. Charles, can you hear me? Frozen internet, Charles. Charles? Let's see here.
Should I call you back? Yeah.
No, wait.
I'll call you back.
Charles, there you go. You're back.
Yeah.
It's kind of crackling a little bit.
Okay, fine.
Wait a minute.
But
I think it's back.
You there?
It's back. Yeah. Now you're back.
Yeah. So the reason the founders had the House of Representatives declare war is that war is hell. There's no such thing as a war that isn't going to have civilian casualties. There's no such thing. Now, that doesn't excuse what's happened here in Crimea. The thing that will go down in history as an unmitigated disaster is the fact that we had a peace deal on the table a month into this in 2022, which is going to be would have been a far better result for the Ukrainian people than what these warmongers who worship at the altar of perpetual war, what these warmongers have insisted we follow for the benefit of the defense contractors, for the benefit of the lobbyists, for the benefit of the many crooked thugs in Ukraine, NATO, and elsewhere who are stealing money allocated for this effort to pad their own nests, whether it's Zelensky with his family getting another home in the south of France or Italy or wherever he's getting another place, or spending more money on his wife's shopping sprees in Paris. This episode in Ukraine is a disgusting indictment of the warmongers in the United States and Europe, who are a real threat to every one of us. And there needs to be, post this election, assuming Trump wins, there needs to be a real serious look at who are the people who fanned the flames of this war, how much have they benefited from it, and what exactly was going on with the Biden family and Zlochevsky and the others behind Burisma in Ukraine well before this adventure started. How much did the FBI, the CIA, the DIA, and those fucking idiots who signed the 52 idiots who signed that letter saying that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation, how much did they know and do they know about the Biden corruption scheme, and how many Republicans are benefiting from this corruption scheme and scam in Ukraine? These are serious questions, and they're questions that should unite the political spectrum. It used to be that, remember Nancy Pelosi, when, she was trying to avert disaster in Syria under the Bush presidency, she got up there and she said, dissent is the highest form of American patriotism. Okay? Maybe that is true, not in the middle of a war, however, a declared war, but maybe that is true. That wing in the Democrat Party has been silenced and canceled. But I would have thought the true progressives, and not country club Republicans like that moron Paul Ryan on the board of Fox, who's not a true country club Republican, but has learned how to play one. I would have thought that true conservatives, particularly military veterans who understand that no war plan is going to work, nothing on paper works according to plan. There is always an unexpected consequence. That's why, when this chicken hawk, Jake Sullivan, got up there, remember, prior to the abrupt withdrawal from what is now called Afghanistan, he said, I have considered with my senior people all possible eventualities of the retreat. Oh, really, Jake? Did you do that with crack or with crack and alcohol?
Charles, you saw this, right? That Paul Ryan had the Steele dossier before, and he didn't tell him.
Yeah, I mean, it's outrageous. I mean, what is clear about people who get close to the cesspool that is Washington, D.C., is that when you're sitting there in the House of Representatives, even as Speaker of the House, you've got to seek re-election every 2 years, and you've got to raise money for that. So you go down there and you quickly see that you're outgunned. that the people who derive benefit from the most profligate operation on earth, that is to say, the federal government, those people are quite happy to pay you, and your family millions, tens of millions, even hundreds of millions or billions of dollars to get their slice of corrupt life out of the federal treasury. They're happy to do that. So you're badly outgunned. And it's so easy to succumb to temptation. And that's why if we had people who had one IQ point responsible for the Ivy League and other supposed elite institutions, they would understand that the founders, even if they owned slaves, were unbelievable people who risked it all in 1776. The penalty for what these people did, the penalty for minor offenses, pre-American Constitution, was death. The penalty for minor, stealing a minor amount of money, doing far less than those idiot people did up in Colombia, and who recently Bragg let them off, the DA let them off for the violence they caused in Colombia. We're doing far less than that in pre-Constitution, the British colonial America, was death. And the founders risked that. Most of the founders were quite wealthy and powerful. They risked all of that for an experiment, which is really truly noble. Is it perfect? No. Were there flaws? Yes. Okay. Is life perfect? Absolutely not. So we ought to revere what the founders did. And there isn't a person in the House of Representatives today, even Jim Jordan. I don't know what the fuck that guy is doing, why everything is taking so long. Same with James Cover.
Gets paid by the hour.
There isn't a person in Washington, D.C. who holds a candle to the founders. And that lame brain AOC with Jamal Bowman, I don't know if you saw that thing at the rally. I mean, those two, they're the Looney Land is to the right of them.
Well, because it's a kind of a cross between a hip-hop show and the Waffle House. I don't know what they're going for. But Jamal Bowman was up there cursing and everything. Here he is. He's like throwing chairs. Look at this.
I know. And here's a guy, basically, he stands revealed as yet another diversity fraudster. He apparently there are incredible allegations from that guy Christopher Rufo, who identified Claudine Gay. That what's his name? Bowman may have plagiarized his PhD thesis on critical race theory. I mean, this is a collection of frauds, and America is sick and tired of frauds, I think. So back on your question, could Joe Biden pull out already? Nobody likes a quitter. And the problem is the Democrat brand has been so badly tarnished. If you want to look, I mean, for Andrew Cuomo, and now I think Andrew Cuomo went on Bill Maher for a reason. I'll get to that. But for Andrew Cuomo to get up there as a Democrat former attorney general and governor and say that there was no business bringing this suit against Donald Trump it's worse than, being told that you're going to die of a life-threatening disease that's incurable in 24 hours. I mean, that soundbite is just death for the Biden brand.
Yeah.
Right? Now, why would Andrew Cuomo do that?
Resuscitating himself, I think.
No, this is a pro-Clinton move. This is a coordinated pro-Clinton move. That Andrew Cuomo is a Clinton ally. He served as a young man as Secretary of Housing and Urban Development for Bill Clinton. Nobody knows better than Andrew just how corrupt his family is. His grandfather and his sister and he were both involved in a massive charity fraud. So let's hope that they get pushed forward across the line. But I think he's doing this. There's an undeclared war, I believe, between the Obama wing and the Clinton wing of the Democrat Party. Both see the power vacuum, that Joe Biden is unelectable and the Biden coalition is unelectable, and that you cannot steal enough votes to get that across the line. So both see the power vacuum. Hillary made her move last week, at the Tonys. And we haven't heard from Bill in a bit. He's got that big book coming out that's about his post-presidency. It's going to be LOL Riot Funny, which I'm preparing for. I can't wait to see that book.
What is that book?
He's got a book that's coming out now. It was announced months ago. We talked about it. It's finished. It was finished, I think, 3 months ago. That's coming out right before the election, extolling the virtues of his and her post-presidency. It's got to talk about the Clinton Foundation, and that will be very. I mean, you can't. There isn't enough lipstick. L'Oreal does not produce enough lipstick in a century to make that pig look good. And so this book is the same people who are ready to have citizen. Yeah, it should be it should be called resident, penitentiary
Citizen.
resident.
You
Yeah,
know, Charles,
exactly.
we used to say on set, you can't put lipstick on a pig, but you can
Right.
roll a turd in glitter.
The sayings of producer Jason Goodman.
Yeah.
That's right up there.
So, Charles, we're
Yeah.
just about ready to head on over to the First Amendment Forum. We're going to continue the conversation there. People can join on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth. That's the most economical way to sponsor the show and to access a huge library of sponsor-exclusive content. And you can also join us on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com or subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. I got a lot of stuff to ask you, Charles. People want to know who you think Trump will pick for the vice president. And we have a lot of articles from Zero Hedge and stuff happening overnight. We're going to talk about somebody got stabbed in the East Village. We'll be right back, so stay with us, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.